In this video, I'm going to show you how to file for Social Security disability based on my decades of inside experience and overseeing the adjudication and processing of hundreds of thousands of disability applications. And I'm going to show you all the tips, tricks, and secrets from the inside to give you the best chance possible to get your disability claim approved. So this video is part two. If you've stumbled onto this one, make sure you go back to part one and watch that one. And the number one thing I want to convey right now is do not wait. If watch the part one of this and it'll tell you exactly when you should file, but you should not wait. If you're currently disabled and you're not working over the substantial gainful activity, as I talked about in part one, then immediately call and schedule an appointment. Don't wait for your medical records. Don't wait for the plans to align or whatever the case may be. Call and protect yourself. It's called protective filing. So as soon as you call or you go online and you start the application, you're immediately protected. So if it's the end of the month, let's say it's March 31st, and you call Social Security or you go online and you start your application, then you're protected for that month. So if it takes you, if you call and schedule an appointment and your appointment to do the disability claim over the phone isn't for 2 months, then once they do approve it, you're going back to March because that's when you first contacted Social Security. So the important thing, number one, is to call Social Security and set up an appointment. Even if you're going to do it online, call up and set up an appointment. Again, it'll take about a month or two to actually schedule your appointment, to have your appointment. But in the meantime, go ahead and go online. And this is what I recommend. I always, if you're able to do it online, I would highly recommend you do it online. Why? Is because my experience. Again, I ran the third busiest Social Security office in the country, and unfortunately, the Social Security employees are completely overwhelmed. They have too much. And because of that, their appointments aren't as long as they really should be. In terms of disability, you're looking at probably 45 minutes, an hour for just the person filing for disability. And then sometimes there's extra for children adding on to the disability and all the rest of it. So the problem there is the Social Security employees don't always have the time to do everything as thoroughly as you need them to be done. So what I recommend is to go online. Get all your documentation. So you'll need your doctor's names and addresses and phone numbers. You'll need your medication. So grab all your bottles and get them all lined up right there next to your computer, and take notes of any type of past appointments you have, everything right there. Grab yourself a cup of coffee and then start the disability online application. Answer all the questions. Even if it doesn't apply to you, you have to just understand all Social Security, all government applications and forms, they're meant for everybody. So your particular case might not be your particular case might not be relevant in terms of certain questions, certain answers. So answer everything, but if it doesn't apply to you, just put not applicable, doesn't apply. Okay, but fill out everything, and that way, when you finally submit it, it won't come back as rejected because it wasn't completed. All right, so make sure you fill out everything. So there's a couple of major parts of the disability application. So you'll have the first part. It's kind of the technical part. It gives your name and your address, and if you're currently working, and to make sure you're insured. Okay, and then once you complete that part, relatively easy part, then you go on to the actual disability application, and it asks you all the question about your disability. And the number one thing there is just don't focus on your main disabling condition. So add other things that if they're applicable. So just don't focus on one, because sometimes one particular disabling condition won't get you approved. But if you also put down there, okay, I have this, and I also have high cholesterol and high blood pressure and all this other, then a kind of they'll look at it in totality. So put your very the main disabling condition first, and then add other disabling conditions, even side effects of medications. Sometimes you have a disabling condition, but the doctor has given you some type of medication. Because of that medication, sure, it's kind of solved this issue to some extent, but now you've got other issues that just aren't able, just doesn't allow you to work. And in the next video, part 3, I'm going to give you 10 insider secrets to really improve your chances of getting approved. But before we move on to part 3 of this video series, let's go ahead and focus on the actual application. Again, another reason I recommend you do the application online is because of the time, and because you can put as much information down there as you have time to do so. Don't put too much long narratives in there. Be abbreviated, succinct as possible, but include all of your disabling conditions, all of the side effects of the medications. Make sure you list all your doctors, and I'll talk about one of the secrets on that on the next video. But put all of your conditions in there, fill out every particular part. It'll also ask you, it's kind of a functional report. It'll ask you some things like, how often do you walk each day? How often do you stoop? How often do you kneel? So if they ask that question, just do as best as you can to answer the questions. And again, I have my YouTube live at least once a week. You can ask in the comments, and we can answer any specific questions in the comments. And if we get a whole bunch of comments or questions about a particular thing, I just might do kind of another video to answer those specific questions. The disability needs and assessments kind of change on a regular basis, and so we want to make sure we keep you updated on an ongoing basis. If you've watched some of my other videos, you know that you can, in fact, file for retirement benefits and disability benefits at the same time. So if you're 62 years old, and we'll see that, if you file for disability, it used to take 3 to 6 months, now twice, 3 times that. So people ask, okay, well, what am I going to do in the meantime? I don't have any money coming in. Social Security defines disability as inability to work. I can't work. I've stopped work. I got no more money coming in, and it's going to take 6 months, 9 months to get my disability approved. That's where if you just happen to be 62 years old, you can file for early retirement at the same time. So when you schedule an appointment, tell them you want what's called a RIB DIB. They'll know exactly what you mean. So it's retirement insurance benefits and disability insurance benefits. You file for both of those at the same time. One of the things with that is, if you file for early retirement, then that reduces your benefit amount. Once you're approved for disability, what they will do is, usually when you're approved for disability, you get what your full retirement age benefit would be. But if you receive retirement before that, let's say you receive 12 months of retirement, when you're approved for disability, they unfortunately will take those kind of reduction factors into consideration, and your disability benefits might be a bit less. But then again, you're also receiving benefits, money, on a monthly basis when you actually need it. So just take that into consideration if you're going to file for retirement and disability at the same time. So the questions in the disability application are pretty self-explanatory. If they don't apply to you, again, just put down there NA, and what happens after you push the button or the claim is sent up. Basically, when it's sent up, it's the Social Security Administration. First, they do a technical decision. That is, if you're insured or you're currently insured, does your disability last? Do you allege it to last 12 months or longer? And if it passes all of those, then they will send it to the Disability Determination Services. And the whole date last insured and everything I talked about in part 1. But the DDS, again, I'm going to teach you all the acronyms. Disability Determination Services, that's a state agency. Those are the ones, they're state agency, but they're funded by Social Security and the federal budget. And those are the ones that are tasked with getting your medical records, and a consultative exam, a CE, in case they want you to see one of their Social Security doctors. And they're the ones that actually make the medical determination. So, in terms of your medical records, you don't necessarily have to provide them. It's a kind of a case by case basis. One of the issues about providing your medical records yourself when you file is that it really depends on your particular disabling condition. If it's your disabling condition is basically 2 pages and there's a diagnosis, the firm diagnosis there that nobody can dispute, then providing that might expedite things. Social Security has this algorithm that they came up with a while ago, and it's actually pretty good. I've my inside experience where I would I talked about in part one that I would take an application and this person, had a terrible car accident or something, and they're obviously disabled and they will, not be able to work forever. And I take all the information and I push the button. I come in the office the next day and it's approved. Very, very simple. But for disabling conditions that are a lot more nuanced, to have a lot of gray area, a lot of documentation, um, those in terms of providing medical evidence directly, um, there's good and bad on that. Sometimes it's a waste of time because what we've seen is if you got 1 or 200 pages of medical evidence to prove your disabling condition, and we send that up, sometimes the disability adjudicators up there, the people that are getting all the evidence together, there's 2 or 300 pages, and they're not exactly sure whether some people provide all of the pages. So maybe from a particular doctor, it's 200 pages, but actually it's 300, but the person has taken out the 100 pages that are negative to their particular case. So sometimes rather than look through the entire thing and look at all the dates, they just say, well, that's going to take too long. So I would just request it directly from that particular doctor or the hospital. That way I know I get the complete set of medical records. So sometimes providing your own medical records is unfortunately just a waste of time. And that's one of the things why the whole disability decision takes so long, is because when you file the application, you'll also do a form called the SSA 827. And the 827 is just basically you're giving Social Security or the DDS authorization to get your medical records. So it's a HIPAA type form. So the DDS in your particular state, they take that form and they put their letter request together and they send it to your doctors and your hospitals and say, hey, this person is filing for disability and here's their authorization. Please give us all the medical records. And that's where it takes an incredible amount of time, because sometimes these doctors and hospitals take time returning those. And that adds time to the adjudication. So that's one of perhaps the most time consuming parts, is getting the medical documentation. And as I said, sometimes like, well, I can make that easier by just giving it myself, but sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. All right, I think that's enough detailed information today. I want to keep these videos in about 15, 20-minute top blocks. I know a lot of people out there, their disability doesn't allow them to sit and do the entire thing all at once. So I'm going to try to break them up in about 15 or 20 minutes or so. Next video, I'm going to talk about the onset date and the actual the grand scheme of initial claims and appeals. So make sure you watch for that and have a beautiful day.